you doing?
Good.
Yes? You look like you're ready to go.
I am.
Well, awesome, because I am too. And here we are in the Harvest, where we discuss everything cinema and story. And as we learn, you learn. And as we grow, you grow. My name is Xavier Garcia.
I'm Jonathan Garcia.
And this is episode 31, kind of a part 2.
Yes.
To our last week's discussion regarding the relationship between director of photography and the script. Last week we began a really in-depth conversation and we ran out of time, but it was regarding the relationship between the director of photography and the script, and we kicked off the discussion by identifying the position that the DP holds as one of great privilege. They are the first audience member to the performance, and yet they are simultaneously the most important crew member in the crafting of the story, and therefore they must be completely removed as a passive observer. It's a really interesting dichotomy, and one that often clashes on set as the acting is happening like right before their very eyes. And today we continue the discussion with part 2. And we're going to dig a little deeper into specific circumstances where the plan falls apart. Dun, dun, dun. So, and we're going to talk about how to handle the unexpected and being creative in moments where your back is up against the wall.
Cool. Love it.
You ready for it?
Yeah.
I'm going to hit you with a barrage of questions.
Oh, man. Hope I can answer them.
You're going to have to, swat them like bad vibes.
Yeah. I'll try.
Like that meme. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No. Okay, let's get started. All right. So where we left off, this is where we left off. We were talking about, Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
When something can go wrong, it will go wrong, Something always goes not according to plan. It's just the nature of the film set. There's so many variables, so many people, and everybody coming with, their own problems, issues, circumstances, worries, concerns, and you expect everybody to come on set, shut all that off, and be 100% focused on the task. And sometimes it's just it doesn't happen 100% like that, how you plan it, right? Or, for example, long hours and people get tired. And when they get tired, they get sloppy. And when they get sloppy, accidents kind of happen. Things like that, Sometimes things don't go according to plan. And we've got stories.
Oh, do we have stories?
We've got stories.
Yes.
Now, when something doesn't go according to plan, Jonathan, would you consider that necessarily that right or wrong? Does it mean that it's right if it goes according to plan or wrong if it doesn't go according to plan?
No. Sometimes there are happy accidents, So you can never say that everything that doesn't go according to plan is wrong
bad, right?
or is bad.
No way.
We've had experiences where things have gone wrong and we've had such beautiful moments.
Sure.
I know one occasion during Crossroad where we didn't have the lighting suitable for the scene as the sun was coming down, and we were hoping to have kind of been done at that point and had a specific
that's right, because we weren't planning on filming into
the night for certain scenes. And here comes the sun during the reveal of Jesus. So it was just wow, So, sometimes there are things like that where you the lights, the sun's going down. What do we do? Just keep rolling. The sun,
Yeah, we had some pretty cool incidents. Yeah. I mean, another one, and this one's an embarrassing one, so I'm not even going to mention any names or anything like that, but people can look it up and find the stuff up. But we had a miscommunication between wardrobe department and our lead actor. Yes. You remember this? And our lead actor, who was playing the role of Jesus, there was some miscommunication, and he didn't have his sandals.
No.
He didn't have his sandals for his shoot. And I can't remember what it was that we couldn't get it in time. We just had to roll. I think we were behind schedule, and it was something that seemed as though it was a major accident.
Let's put it this way: Jesus was in character because he's like, I don't need them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's like, let's just roll. Let's just roll, because maybe Jesus wouldn't have had sandals.
Yeah, right. At least resurrected Jesus.
Yeah, I think he tried to use the the foxes have holes, the scripture, and but the Son of Man has no place to rest his head, and he's like, the Son of Man has no sandals to walk.
Doesn't need sandals. Resurrected Jesus does not need.
So he did his whole scene. Yeah. So we were walking the whole path was on stones.
Yeah, right.
It was on stones and on rocks, and it was uncomfortable. I know it was uncomfortable, and I was wearing boots because it was a rugged terrain.
Oh yeah.
And I was uncomfortable. So as a director walking around, I can only imagine how uncomfortable and painful he was. But he said that he was so in the moment and so in the role and embracing the environment and embracing what was happening that he was like using the pain to depict just kind of the Son of Man in agony, in a place of like true emotional depth.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you don't know how we were talking about, just like the message to the film Crossroad was about the beauty of the feet.
Right.
It was the scripture that says,
right, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the gospel,
right,
preach
and
the
bring good news, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like that picture of Isaiah, where the messenger comes from the mountains running, with this great announcement and declaration of good news, and coming exhausted to declare the kingdom. And so like it worked.
Right. And
it worked.
And it ended up working along with the poster because
that's right, the cover art
we
for
ended
the poster.
up having, very dirty, messy, ugly feet. And then say, how beautiful are those feet? And it's like, what makes it so beautiful is because they've done work, they've traveled, they've gone through terrains, and they're dirty, they're filthy, but what makes them beautiful is the gospel message.
The message that they bring in.
So
it worked.
So
it was like, all of it worked. It was weird. It was a happy accident.
Right.
It shouldn't have happened. There should not have been a barefoot Jesus on like jagged rocks and jagged stones. I'm sure that was glass. So anyway, a happy accident.
Right.
The actor, we all talked, we all discussed, and it was used and embraced, and it led to like some really powerful performance. So there's a situation, a circumstance where it's not necessarily wrong. Not always. When something doesn't go according to plan, is it wrong per se? As we were just saying, it could be that circumstances have brought up unforeseen challenges. We like to call those new opportunities.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's the best word.
Opportunities, and they need to be addressed at that moment. And the way that I like to see it, and I know you share in agreement with me on this, is that creativity is the synthesizing of preparation and like those new opportunities, right? So when your preparation and a new opportunity have to come together, like you got to get creative, because if you're going to call those moments, those unforeseen challenges as opportunities, but you're prepared for many opportunities, things can lead to creative outcome.
Absolutely. I mean, I know a famous saying is necessity is the mother of inventions.
Right.
And so when there's a desperate need or something that you have to solve and figure out. We've been given the ability to problem solve and to find ways and challenge ourselves to innovate and create new ideas. I mean, that is, if you listen to Deacon's podcast or anything Deacon's ever done, a lot of the stuff that he does on set is just his rigs and his innovations of lighting and doing different things to try to make his idea come to pass. So yeah, there are challenges, and they're beautiful challenges, and you just have to see them that way so that you can actually give yourself the ability to think.
Right.
Because that's important, especially in a set where people are dependent on you to be on your toes and ready for answers.
Yeah, preparation. How much research and preparing and anticipating, and yeah, absolutely. And it does lead to creative outcomes. I love it. So now, Jonathan, as a DP, how do you handle the planned versus the unplanned? And let me ask that in a different way. What do you do during those moments? For example, you're a DP. Last week's episode was all about you being an audience. You're the first audience member, right? So you're watching actors. You're the first one to receive the performance that is before you, and therefore you're both actor and creative at the same exact time. You're a crew member, but you're also this observer. Now, what happens? What do you do as a DP when something happens that's totally unplanned, right? Like the actors are in the zone. They're in the zone and they gift you with this brilliant moment that you weren't ready for. It was a moment that wasn't blocked. It wasn't taped out or measured as far as distance. It wasn't rehearsed, right? It was just something that came out of nowhere. And you can sense that it's perfect, but, it wasn't something that, for example, wasn't taped out and blocked out for the actor to hit his mark and be in focus, right? And it's happening right before your very eyes. Like, can you prepare for something like that ahead of schedule?
I mean, I guess it depends on the scenario, right? If it's something that was an accident or something that could be an injury of some sort, or equipment malfunction, or gosh, I mean, there's so many things that could happen in that moment that are so unplanned. It's kind of hard for you as the DP to make many decisions when you're rolling with the camera, because that's your job.
Right.
You are not the person who will call cut.
Right.
And you will never be. And you have to understand that that's the director's role, and sometimes the assistant director, if that's been handed over to him. And so you really have to capture everything that is both planned and unplanned, regardless of the fact, because again, you'll be surprised by performances or by something that happened, and the reaction of the actor will be brilliant. You'll always find yourself with the power of dealing with that afterwards, where you could just cut it out, or you just get rid of it, don't use it, you know? But the best and the most important thing for the camera person is just to take everything in.
Yeah.
Right?
Is it, you know, and I mean, yeah, absolutely, hands down, but like having a team of professionals, for example, people that you can trust, you know, like, okay, is my first AC pulling focus on this right?
Right.
You know, like, this wasn't taped, this wasn't planned, he's not going to his marks, but what I'm seeing is brilliant. I feel like you have to have a trust and almost like a shorthand, you know, like you give a glance and they know what you're saying. Like, I got this, don't worry, we're on it. You know, like just I don't know, have you found that like working with people that you have experience with, there's like a learning curve that's been removed and those moments are handled easier?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or is it just that because you're a professional, you just know how to do it?
No, I mean, remember, you could just be looking in a monitor and you have a whole team handling the equipment, and you're expecting them to kind of nail down what's on paper. And sometimes you need to find people that are on board with your vision and what you guys planned out. And sometimes you'll have someone who isn't pulling or racking focus on the moment you want them to. And you'll be end up
crazy.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be surprised. Here's the thing is, you and I say this all the time, the story is king, right? So we have to make sure we're telling the story 100%. Right. And there are sometimes happy accidents, but at the end of the day, story is king. Yeah. So if those happy accidents are just beautiful, but they don't tell the story, then there's no point, right, for them.
So they're no longer happy, they're just accidents.
They're just accidents, exactly. So, you know, how I handle unplanned situations, I mean, it depends on the scenario, and preparation is key, is number one, to be able to handle those situations, because it's not that you say, okay, if this happens, then I'll do this. If that happens, I'll do this. It's not like that. It's more so how to comport yourself.
Yes, thank you.
In the middle of when that problem happens.
Yes, I feel like the more mature, more prepared, more confident DPs are not going to freak out in a moment like that and start yelling at people. Right? Like, they'll be professionals. Right. You know, they'll see the moment, and so they'll behave like professionals, you know? Right. And especially if they've been doing this a long time, it's like, seen it, been there, done that, know how to handle it, you know? Chill, everyone, relax, that type of thing.
Exactly.
I think you nailed it, how one comports themselves, how they behave in that moment. And sometimes unfortunately, you even get some seasoned veterans that just like, you know, the diva mentality, the diva type, like, you know, like, I am the artiste, I am the DP, you know, like, how dare you not do it the way that, and it's like, that's a sign of immaturity, and it's an unfortunate thing that actually happens a lot in indie cinema, because everybody's trying to make a name for themselves.
Yeah, I heard this the other day on TV, is like, ego has no amigos. And it's true. If you have an ego on set, you're not going to be able to connect and work with your team. You know, they'll end up seeing you as a person who's trying to outperform yourself and be noticed. You know, this is a team thing, you know, and so you're trying to work together to make sure that you're able to unveil this thing out.
I think that's the difference between, you know, like the technical DP and then the artist, because the person that screams out, I am an artiste, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, because an artist, right, they're able, like, art happens in those in-between moments, right? It's like, there's the very technical stuff. And then what happens in those in-between moments where like things are starting to break down a little bit, but then like creativity comes in and you solve it and something beautiful happens that was unplanned. It's like, and then you step back and you're like, I was prepared for the moment. We handled it like professionals. We were on our toes and we overcame, and something artistic and beautiful came out as a result.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that art is always a mistake or an accident, right? Like,
No.
but and by no means, like, an artist can actually go into a moment and create art even through the technical. But I think that like it is the more mature, more professional individuals that can recognize that moment and seize it as an opportunity to like, okay, this was unplanned. We have to be creative. Let's make art, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
I agree.
So now, a couple of examples.
Yeah.
We got. We were just talking about the. I have two, but I want to skip to the second one real quick. We were talking about Foxcatcher, 2014.
Brilliant.
There's a scene in there where Channing Tatum, he's in the hotel room after losing a wrestling match, right? And he starts to punch himself in the head, and he's punching himself in the face. And when you're watching that, Channing Tatum's a big dude. He's a strong dude. And you can tell that he's punching himself, and he's not just like slapping.
Yeah, no,
Those are
especially in
some
that role.
legit
He worked out in that
punches.
role to be able to.
And as he's punched himself, he walks past the mirror and he catches himself looking at himself in the mirror, and he just starts to ram his head into the glass through the mirror over and over and over again. And that wasn't scripted. The punching to the face wasn't scripted. And he broke through that mirror. He broke through the sheetrock, and then he slammed his head right into the stud on the other side of that sheetrock. But the cameraman kept rolling. Despite the fact that he was bleeding, and he could see the glass inside the cut, and you knew that he was going to need stitches, and there was potential harm being done to him, and his face is, I mean, that's his moneymaker, right? He's a good-looking dude. And then he finishes ramming his face through the mirror, and he continues pacing around, and he's like he punches the lamp to the ground and puts his cuts his hand on that too.
Yeah.
And there's like cut all over his face, and there's no dialogue for like 10 minutes. There's no dialogue. It's just a really physical set of like scenes, and then he's done. He sits down, and then there's a cut. Then there's finally a cut, because I think the pain started to happen, and he's like settling into reality, and then like the director calls cut. Now, in that specific moment, you as the DP, you have a choice, right? And this is a hard choice. Like, what do you do, right? Like, you stop the camera and get him medical attention, because there's a possibility that he's hurt. Or you keep rolling because you're seeing probably something that could never be rehearsed. It could never have been scripted. You could have never asked an actor to do that, and he's doing it, and he's giving it to you on a platter, and so you keep rolling, right? Well, the DP kept rolling. Like, how is a DP? How do you balance that? Now, you already answered it a little bit. It's like it's not your job.
Yeah.
But I mean, can you talk a little bit about like the emotions that go through your mind at that moment?
It's so hard, because not only are you seeing the scene, but you're personally for me, you're very self-aware of what is happening, because you're capturing it. You know what I mean? And it's so hard to try to stop something that the actor's literally giving you. He chose to give you that performance and take it to another level. And it would be rude to me to be like, all right, cut, just because it's hurting you. You know what I mean? He is putting his life at risk for the role. And it's hard to say no. And sometimes you just got to sit there and take it. But then there are moments where, for instance, we were talking about this before when we were sitting down, the particular movie that was being filmed where a train was coming, and they were filming on the train track.
Yeah, I can't remember the title of it, but I know that
and one of the crew members was killed on it. Yeah. And, when you're seeing an incoming train, or you're doing something, you have to think about, all like, you know what I mean? It's not just
you can't just stay like, oh look, everybody's gonna die if you stay on that track and you keep filming. Right.
Exactly.
So it's like you're not just gonna risk the lives of people for the sake of the shot.
At some point, there has to be.
So you're literally like you're measuring.
Yeah, because you could be risking, just for something. I need something amazing, so I need you to risk your life for it. And I think for me personally, I couldn't do it.
It's never worth it.
It's not worth it. Like I could think about like, for instance, Quentin Tarantino be like, let me use my hands to choke you, and I'm gonna really press, and then you see his fingers really digging into her skin, and it's like, how far you go till it's too far.
Yeah.
And so you have to discuss that stuff with your team,
yeah,
the director, and figure out like, is it necessary?
Right.
What are we saying from it? Is it the best thing for the story?
Right.
And go from there.
Yeah. I think a good rule of thumb, and you can correct me if I'm way off base, but a good rule of thumb is like, look, the script is what was approved. The script is what's king. And if somebody is putting people's lives at risk, or health, or even just injury, for something that wasn't already approved, because like the script goes through many hands. It goes through people that are thinking about it from financial perspectives, from safety perspective, from all of those things, and it gets approved. And so what's on the script is the thing to do. Like Channing Tatum putting his head through the glass wasn't on the script. Right? If it had been on the script, that would have been done properly. It would have been done, like with a stunt double who knows what he's doing. He's trained. It would have been probably, like fake glass, the breakable glass. There wouldn't have been a stud on the other side. And so, like, stick to the script. If you want an amazing moment, then do it in the writing and have it already pre-planned, discussed. But sometimes those happy accidents do happen, and I feel like that director, you have to have a lot of trust as the DP and the director, that the director cares a lot about everyone on that set.
Right.
And that they're not going to put people's lives at risk for the sake of ego or self, or, of trying to get a better, bigger shot, because they're the artist.
And most of the time, these actors, they want to give you their best.
They do.
They want to give
all
you
the
their
time.
best. And sometimes they will break,
all the time.
certain
They'll put
health
themselves
rules
at
risk. Right.
Yeah.
And you have to be sometimes the mediator.
Yeah. It's like it's like the football player with the coach. They'll play through a broken leg to please, like a high school kid will play through a broken leg to please the coach, because it's like,
especially when they believe in the script so much. Yeah.
And you hear this a lot. You hear it in Hollywood and podcasts talking about like an actor's mentality, and like they oftentimes look at the director as like a father or a parent figure, depending male female director, like as a parent figure, and so they're literally on that set vulnerable and making themselves vulnerable, hoping to please the director is like this parent figure, and so they'll dance through hoops, they'll jump through fire hoops, in order to do those things. And the director, that's why like it's important for that team to become a real family and a real team. And I'm not saying that like on Hollywood sets you're gonna have the time to like be best bros with or best pals with.
Yeah, but you and I, the way we do it is we're shepherds. You know what I mean? We're the whole team, the crew, everyone's are like the sheeps that we take care of. They're in a set that we're fully responsible for.
Yeah.
And if anything goes wrong, whether they didn't eat,
right,
whether they didn't sleep,
right,
whether they were at risk for something, we're constantly trying to making sure, and things slip. Yeah. Things sometimes, get missed, but when we know when we are, sometimes we'll go above and beyond. Yeah. Just so that others won't. And that sometimes we don't get checked on our ends, and then our wives are telling us, and be like, why do you do this?
You need sleep. You need to pull back. Yeah.
So I mean, it's something where there needs to be some sort of checks and balances.
But at the end of the day, you nailed it. Communication is super important. And you need to be communicating with a team that you know has similar sensibilities. Like I know, after having gone through, and even in a Hollywood film set, because like these people don't come together just for the sake of coming together. A lot of these people are, just kind of informally interviewed into the team. And so like through that process, as you're building your team, just getting to know, for example, your DP is like, or the DP going to accept the job, understanding that the director has a similar sensibility to them. So that's like, I know where I draw my line. Is this DP, or sorry, director, like does he think similar to me? Have we talked enough? Have we communicated enough to know that we're making the same movie? That we're making it the same way, with the same goals at heart, the same, that kind of stuff. And I think you nailed it. Communication is key. Yeah. And here's a little pro tip for everyone. Communication on a film set is key just in general. I mean, that is like, that's what makes a happy film set. Now, obviously, it has to be at an appropriate time. Like, you don't want a PA coming up to you while you're in the middle of filming saying, "Psst, Jonathan, your car is being towed." You're in the middle of a scene you're shooting. You don't want that, obviously, like, within reason, but like communication on a film set, especially, between department heads, at the appropriate time and at the right time is key. It's important. Yeah. And then knowing when not to communicate something is also important. Sometimes you get the people that are like, drama, am I right? And you're like, okay, be self-aware. Like, if you're the type of person that tends to be dramatic and overly dramatic, know also when not to communicate something, when to pull back and be professional. Yeah. Know who to talk to, the channels, like, you don't want to be bothering the director with something that, like, the second AD can handle.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that you don't want to bother the DPP just because he's high up, but because he has so much in his mind. So much in his mind. The people that are, like actors, they have so much in their mind. And it's basically you adding more to it.
Yeah. And look, and in that, like, Foxcatcher example that we just brought in and talked about, like, at that moment and in those types of certain circumstances and situations, like, the DP everyone knows. Everyone on set knows, like, do we stop this or do we keep going? And unfortunately, you're the one with the power to hit the off button, right? And there's so many relationships at that point that are at flux. Like, there's so many, like, your relationship to the director,
right?
Like, because you gotta, your relationship and responsibility to the
like
actor.
It's like, here's the 5-star general. He has the rocket button, but the president is the one who says,
press or don't press.
Yeah,
right,
exactly. So it's like that. You can't do anything really until you get your, and so your order. So
now that's like the one extreme. That's one extreme. Right, like a guy putting their head or a gal putting their head through glass. Then there's the other extreme, the other end of the spectrum. When you're watching a scene and you're like, you're like, what you're seeing is so beautiful, but you gotta hold it together. Has that ever happened to you? Where you're just watching a performance?
So caught up into it, or you're so excited. Or like you're loving it, and then it's like, you could almost affect the camera or the movement or the shaking.
How do you handle that? Like, how can you be so connected? Because you have to be, but then disconnected at the same time.
Well, I think that comes with, doing it over and over again.
Just being a professional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't
experience.
Yeah. Just you're so focused on knowing what you're supposed to capture. That you're able to. It's kind of like when you first start driving. I remember when I first started driving, I went through I was such an amazing, right turn, got it, left turn, park it, boom, boom, boom. When I drove, I went through the red light 3-4 times because I just forgot when I was doing my test. I just forgot. Yeah, because I just forgot, I gotta,
you gotta brake.
I gotta stop at the red light. And so I just blew it. She told me, get over, what did you just see there? And so... But that's like you learn to multitask and you learn to see.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You learn to see, move, and especially if you're just kind of just sitting down, watching a monitor. You gotta really hold it in. That's why sometimes I like to be behind the camera, but there are certain scenes where I'll know. Let me just be behind the monitor. It's a small, tight. Simple scene.
Yeah, especially if you have an operator.
Yeah, I want to capture, make sure I got the scene accurately and the emotions. I'm focusing on it along with you.
Because I'm always fighting to grab the monitor and check. Because I want to be, it's like I come from the theater background. And you don't have a monitor in theater. You're watching you're watching it from the first row, middle row, back row to see if how the action is being portrayed. Through the depth of the house, and that's kind of like how I see the performances. But then I realized, wait a minute, it's about what's in the frame, right? And so it's like you got to go back to the monitor and catch the monitor. But then when you watch the monitor, there's this weird thing, for me anyway, that happens in my brain where I become the observer as opposed to the hands-on, engaged creator. And so I'll be sitting there and people make fun of me all the time.
I do.
They see my mouth And I'm saying the words, and I'm watching the screen. And
Yeah.
And like usually you know if it's a good performance.
If it's a great performance,
by looking at
look
me.
at Xavier's face. He's doing it along with him. He's like,
that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So now let's talk about some circumstances that affect the relationship between you and the script.
Okay.
Now, there's no doubt that all crew peoples are on set to serve the script. That's the point. They're on set to serve the blueprint. But there are times when circumstances affect what's on the written page, right? Mm-hmm. Remember, we talked about like a good rule of thumb is to just serve what's on the page.
Right.
Serve what's on the page. Just do what's on the page. Everybody has agreed upon what's on the page. It's gone through its proper checks and balances. Mm-hmm. And that is what's safe. And that is what is good story.
Well, that's what you did your homework on. You
Right.
know, you can't come in or someone coming in, like we talked about Divas saying, well, I want to do this angle of a shot because it just looks better on the lighting and da-da-da-da. At times, you have to first do what's on shot and then come back and be like, yeah, let's throw that shot in there too. But it's not primary if it's not on the shot list.
And you can certainly add shots, like things are ahead of schedule. You guys are blowing through things. Yeah. Everything's perfect. One take Johnny is like hitting all his marks. And like one roll Susie is rocking it, and it's like boom, we're done.
There's always a reason why you had that shot.
Right, but then there's also the other end of it, right? Like you don't have money. Money is probably one of the biggest factors on a film set that affect the actual written word, right? It's like you've got a written word, but you ran out of money, so forget the written word. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're just gonna have to cut out scenes, right? Yeah. That's happened. It happens all the time. It happens on big budget film sets, on Hollywood film sets, all the time. You're looking through and you're saying, okay, we're out of money. Where do we cut? Because this execs, we've been begging the studios for funding, and they're not budging. Money is one. Schedule is another. We just talked about schedule. Unforeseen illnesses, accidents, that happens all the time. Someone gets sick, especially now with COVID. Somebody gets COVID. God forbid someone gets COVID on a film set, right? It's like immediate shutdown, immediate quarantine, 14 days off. Everybody's got to get tested. Sticks in their noses. It can happen. It can derail a production. Right, exactly. It could derail a production. Studio pressure. Every once in a while, and I'm talking like big budget films now, or maybe not a big budget film. Maybe it's an independent film, but you've got your independent financier who's got ideas. Yeah. And they've got these big ideas, and they add pressure and they change. Mm-hmm. I
want to get this film done for this or for that, or I want this shot, or
I want my buddy in it.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, they're a rich. They're a millionaire. They're funding your script. They told their buddy that they're funding a script in a movie, and he's like, "I want to be in a movie," and he's like, "I want you to put my buddy in this scene." That happens. Right. That's very common. Yeah. That's not uncommon. That's very common. It happens. It happens in the independent film world all the time, and it even happens in the Hollywood film scene. Or acts of God.
Right.
Acts of God. Right.
Things like
anything. And so let's start from the top. Money. Right. Let's say you have a shot that requires a locked off dolly, and you're dollying in, but the production can't afford a doorway Fisher dolly, right? You can't afford it. But the shot, as you read it and as you storyboarded it and as you planned it, it's this, it's locked off, it's a dolly in, maybe it's got like a, the doorway, the Fisher dollies also do slight jibs, and so it's like, it's the perfect piece of equipment, but you don't, production said, sorry, don't have the money for that. So at that point, it's going to affect the written page.
Right.
Because what are you going to do? You could use a Steadicam, maybe. You could
pray that you have a great grip team and they can invent something and throw it together and make it do the same exact thing.
Right. That was your saying. That's when necessity becomes the mother of invention. You have no choice. But does it or does it not immediately affect the story? I mean, we know camera moves. We talked about this a lot on the show. Camera moves are not just camera moves for the sake of being cool. Mm-hmm. You're choosing camera moves because each move says something. Mm-hmm. So does that now not say something else? Is it not affecting the word on the page?
That happened to us on a short we were doing on Underground. The first scene, the first shot was supposed to be literally a track in, and as it tracked in, it was actually upside down, and it slowly flipped right
was supposed
side
to
up.
do like a 180.
Yeah, as we were
180
tracking
rotation.
in with them running into the shot.
Right.
Because
And that said something.
exactly, it said a lot. Well, it's saying, here are these men, because at the last shot, it's them upside down and them looking up over. And so it was telling the audience, here we are, these two men who are literally doing something that is off.
It's
illegal in the sense.
Right.
But we're going to flip it and going to show you that that's because of the times that we're in, but what they're doing is right. And actually, the last shot is, okay, we're entering into a time where these men are coming in and something bad's going to happen. So,
I still, to this day, that's my biggest regret for that film, not being able to nail that opening shot, because it was literally the whole point.
Yeah.
Sometimes a single shot can be the whole point and the whole reason behind the film.
Yeah, when you're flipping or switching sides or breaking a 180, right, you're saying a major turn of events. Something is happening here. Something just switched. A new event is coming.
Something of great focus and attention needs to be paid on, that type of thing.
Right, exactly. Something just happened. Did you see what just happened? Because that's going to tell much of the story later on. So many reasons for movements that, when you lose that, when you don't have the equipment, again, you gotta either get rid of shots and hopefully the story stays intact, or find new ways to create them.
Yeah. Well, next one, schedule. So the production goes out of schedule, and now you're having to choose scenes, right? Like, that stuff happens. We were just talking about that. To cut in order to be able to make the film, which is ultimately also a budget issue, right? Or, like, for example, you have an actor who's, contracted only for a certain amount of time. It's like you've got your lead, and your lead is supposed to be on set for a month, and the production goes 45 days, and you don't have your lead for the last 15 days. At that point, like, what do? It's like you got to start cutting out scenes, or you got to be making some serious choices that affect the written page. And that happened to us. That happened to us even on A Blood Throne. One of our actors was double booked, and it was approved. The actor went through all of the right protocols in order to make sure that got approved, but the production had unforeseen circumstances where it went over schedule, and it affected that day's shooting and how we were going to cap off that day, and choices needed to be made by the production to scale back in areas where we were supposed to go all out with a scene, and that affects it affected the DP's choices about certain shots and angles, and and sometimes that's the unplanned happening, and this is all about that. This is all about shifting and knowing how to be professional in those moments, thinking on your feet, being creative, and a lot of creativity had to happen as a result of that.
Yeah, a lot of times when a DP is put in a position where they have to get rid of a shot, the number one thing, as we said, is story. So whatever shot you're going to replace it with, it has to be the bridge of whatever was taken away. So it has to, if I don't have a dolly that, or I don't have a Steadicam that flies through the scene to show the environment, well then you need to have a shot that can say the same thing, maybe not do the same thing, but say the same thing.
Yeah, or as close to
or as close as humanly possible. That that will be more cost effective, or it will be quicker. Whatever it is, the first thing that you think of is, what do I have to do? I have to say what I was saying earlier. How do I say it with the limitations I've been put on?
And that's when everything that you've already said, communication is key, because you talk to your gaffer, you talk to your grip team, you talk to your director, and you start to come up with solutions. All right, these are the solutions, and that's when creativity happens. And
you're not alone. I mean, you're saying grip, but you got the directors along with you in this predicament, and he has a vision, and you have the ability to take it there, and so you guys have to be like, all right, it's a team thing, so you're not alone. That's really it.
So another one, acts of God.
Yeah.
acts of God, like weather, natural
We
disasters.
had a good one.
You
Good
can't,
story.
you can't film in certain parts of California right now. For example, it's burning down.
Yeah.
It's raining fire. New England weather, right? New England winter
Unpredictable.
is an act of God just waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Like that is New England
Yeah.
winter. And oftentimes it affects what's on the page. And we've got a ton of weather
Yeah.
stories.
Oh yeah, we were on a blood throne, and what
Yeah,
meant-
the weather was supposed to be clear skies,
Yep.
perfect day. We had horses. We were going to have horses coming down on this hill. It was an entire scene that was supposed to happen during the day.
Yep.
And it was going to be like this beautiful shot
Yep.
on
And all
a
of
spring
sudden,
day.
there's
And then all of a
snow coming
sudden,
down.
hail, sleet, and ice.
Yep. And then
New England
and then
winter.
it turned to rain.
And what's crazy is that our schedule was so tight for that day because there were so many like big budget items being used, like the horses, these race horses, all the handlers that were a part of that. The time, like the license was just for that day, for that space.
Yeah.
Like there's just so much working against us. And in New England, it decided to, I think, what was this, in April, it was like
Yeah.
the second week of
Yeah.
April,
Yeah.
it decided to like literally like the skies opened up with ice balls.
Yeah. It was so hard because our scheduling time was like noontime, and we didn't start shooting until like 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And so we needed the sunset shot. We didn't have it.
Right.
We needed the horses to be calm and relaxed. And by
they
that
were
point, they were exhausted. And so it was just a
hungry.
culmination of and almost to the point where we didn't even use a lot of the shots.
Right. We had to make a ton of really hard choices. As a DP, you had to make a ton of hard choices because here you've got this entire shot list and you're like, I had 40 shots, I got to choose like 10. And that affected the story. And now you're thinking about, okay, how do we salvage this? How do we
And
get
that was
creative?
day one.
Yeah.
So you could imagine emotionally,
Right.
I mean, just mentally, how it would affect you moving forward
Yeah.
from the whole. If this is how this whole thing's gonna be, you got a long road ahead of you.
Yeah, man.
So you have to have mental toughness when you're doing filmmaking.
Right,
You really
and,
do.
and we made changes. We planned for it. We didn't even have all the lighting that we needed because we weren't planning to be doing night filming, right? And so, but we were prepared with fire, with torches and all that stuff, and so we created ambient mood lighting, and we made the best of it. And that's again one of those situations, the unforeseen and the unplanned. But you've got a team of people that you trust, a team of people that believe in the story. They believe in the team, and everybody just rallied together to get it done. It's like, we just got to get it done.
It's funny, on that day, everything that we talked about, every problem happened.
All of them.
The horses were like knocking off the actors.
Yeah.
They were going crazy.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be still. The lights, we didn't have enough lights because at that point, and then
we
the
didn't plan for
generator,
that shooting.
the generator, we didn't expect a generator, but thank God that we had a generator. But at the same time, we didn't have a system to keep it quiet.
Right.
Because we usually have it some sort inside the truck.
But we didn't have that set up because we weren't going to film it out at night. It was crazy.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was.
But again, that is one of those circumstances where, as professionals,
Yeah.
I mean, that could have literally, any set, anyone else, that could have destroyed the entire movie. That one day could have destroyed the entire movie.
Well, everyone would have been like, who are these guys? What do they got me involved in?
Right. It could have destroyed the morale.
The morale, exactly. And because you were confident, we were able to enter into this. Okay, this is Plan B. Oh, Plan B is ruined too. Okay, Plan C.
Yeah, we had like Plan F. We went all the way down to like G. Yeah. So that's preparation again, and then being confident, and then working with people that are like you can trust. It's like I'm looking at you and I'm like, we got this. Yeah, I got this. We good? Yeah, we good.
Yeah.
It's like, because right now, I don't believe in it. Like, it's okay. I don't either. But because we have each other there, it's like one of us is like having a mental breakdown and the other one is saying, we got this. And then it flips. The other one's having a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
It's like, we got this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cool. And let's see, other examples. What do we got? So we talked about schedule, acts of God, money, equipment, accidents. We've talked about that too.
I mean, studio limitations, things like that.
Yeah.
They'll, if money runs out, we've
Yeah.
even had that. We only got just enough, barely,
Yeah.
for one of our films, and we made it happen.
Right.
But we had to again figure out what kept the story, what didn't.
Right. And sometimes, going back to acts of God, it's not necessarily like the huge, like for us, for Blood Throne, that was a huge thing. It was literally everything that could go wrong, everything went wrong that day, right? Those are the huge things. But sometimes it's the little things. It's not like huge acts of God that are going to completely derail your movie. It's the little things that are going to like derail the entire schedule. I know that there's a story with Roger Deakins in 1917. There was this one shot, right? It was perfectly clear skies. It was noonday sun. It was way too harsh of a sun. And there was this little cloud, and everybody was praying that little cloud would block the sun so that they could do their shot. And everybody's sitting there, like breath held, waiting for that tiny little cloud to come all the way across the sky, across the sky, across the sky, across the sky. And they're like, it's there, do the shot. Yeah. And 1917 was a one-take thing, so it's like, that was it. Yeah. And if you don't get that shot while that little cloud was there, you lose that entire day. And you hope that the next day had the right cloud coverage. That stuff happens too, and like being on your toes, being quick, it's like you can't plan for those types of acts of God, if you will. And again, it comes down to preparation, having a team that you can trust. Because imagine if you're like ready to go, you gotta go. You gotta know that your team
is also ready.
They're all on point.
Yeah,
everybody's ready. Now, how can you protect? What are some ways? I don't know if you have any ways that you can protect against these types of things, if there is any. I mean, we've talked about a ton, being prepared and all that, but is there anything?
Well, I mean, there are certain things that we've done. We have added extra days on schedule.
Yep.
We have, for instance, when it comes to money,
overestimate time, overestimate money as best as you can, and you're allowed to.
Right. When it comes to money, there's things where we have done, raising money on like GoFundMe and things like that, just to add more funds to the project,
or for pickups in case we ever had to go back to reshoot something. What
were the other things? Acts of God. Just knowing that there's a possibility of rain, weather, checking weather, knowing what the climate is, how it could change, having all the things that you need for weather. So even if it says 60, the possibility of it going down to 40 degrees or 30 degrees at nighttime is very likely in New England. Knowing where you are.
Know where you are. Know where you are. Because weather in New England is going to be completely different than weather in England, and although they may be on a similar longitudinal line, it's like it's just not going to be the same, Like,
going to desert lands, you just bring in a lot of water, simple things like that. Also having professionals that, let's say, have nothing to do with the film industry, but have everything to do with the environment.
Consulting with people
that know the particular, like for instance, if it's props, having professionals teach you and equip you with the knowledge of how they're used so that no accident happens.
Right. Or having them on set.
So having
if you
professionals,
can afford it, right? That's like
exactly.
Technically Hollywood would have them on set in an independent scene. Like if you can get them to volunteer.
Right. And a lot of times we've had plenty of volunteers, and simple credit was what they wanted, the credit on the film, and they'd be like,
the credit, the experience.
You get see what it is. And so having professionals for anything that you may perceive that may be a problem, having certain professionals to be there to focus on those things.
And the last one that we haven't touched upon yet is unforeseen illnesses or accidents, which is, those are the worst. As far as accidents and safety on a film set is concerned, typically it's the first AD that is responsible for safety on a set. It's not, as far as Hollywood is concerned, or rather union is concerned, it's not a union recognized position. It's just more of like a traditional thing that has like evolved over time. I guess because the director is technically the boss of the set, that responsibility of ensuring everyone's safety is supposed to be on the director, but because the director is so crucial to the art, it would be the director's assistant not necessarily the director's assistant, but the first AD, the first assistant director. So then it kind of trickles down to them, and that's just kind of how it's evolved. Why it's the first AD's responsibility for safety. But at the end of the day, in an independent film set, it doesn't work that way. It's like you could do one of two things, or one of three things, I guess. You can maintain that idea that the first AD is in charge of safety and keep that. But in independent film sets, I think there's more of a community type approach to it, and everyone is in charge of safety. And and the DP, because they're considered like a boss, if you will, on set, they're equally as responsible, for example, as a director. Something that we like to do, that we did for Blood Throne, and that we're gonna, I enjoy having this on set, is like having an on-set nurse or like an on-set person that's specifically in charge of like safety. You're gonna need that nowadays anyway with COVID. Like you're gonna need to have someone that is like keeping temperature and all that stuff. Just to ensure for the safety of everyone. But having someone specifically in charge of that is always, it's always great for a set. It's like, it's like, oh, they're looking out for our best interest. The I's have been dotted, the T's have been crossed. But the DP is the one who calls the shots for the actual picture, and he needs to be aware of potential dangers when it comes to the process of actually capturing the footage, right? Like, have you ever been in a situation where you're like, I know that it was, like you have your gaffer that rigged something, and you're seeing it and you're capturing it, and you're like, I know that you say that this looks good, but to me, I don't feel comfortable with it. Let's readdress it.
Well, I've had all the time, you'll find operators, Steadicam operators, people who are running high machines, cranes, things like that. These stuff is dangerous. It's in the sense that, for instance, a Steadicam operator who's walking backwards is not knowing where he's going. He has no idea. Exactly. And so he's running with this thing, and so you need an assistant. Maybe the second AC is involved with that, or another gripped person is helping them by guiding them and directing them. You have to have people who know what they're doing in their departments. It's kind of hard to just be like, hey, you have muscles, why don't you just come over here and push this machine? It's like, you need to know how to use this machine, because this machine can cause havoc. A massive crane knocking things over and things like that. It happens
on big sets. It happens on little sets. Cranes literally falling over.
Yeah. So it's when you see these intense shots in films, like in Mission Impossible Fallout, and you seeing like a car flying by or a motorcycle and all these different car shots, and like that stuff is intense.
It's been pre-planned. It's been exercised. It is
to the
rehearsed up the wazoo.
Yeah. And so you can't just improvise that. That, for crew, is not something you improvise. No. So
it's like, at that point, it becomes a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
It's everyone is there looking out for each other,
knowing exactly what to do. It's you have to.
It can shut down a whole production. An accident can shut down a whole production.
Yeah.
You brought up Mission Impossible. In the last Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise broke his ankle jumping from one building to another, and he finished the shot. He ran with a broken ankle, but that shut down production. For what? It was like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that. It shut down production at the end of the day. In an independent set, it could just shut down the film.
Yeah, exactly. So, for instance, like in that movie Mission Impossible, they know that this man is risking his life shot after shot after shot.
And he's a professionally trained. He's more stuntman than he is actor. Yeah.
And so they have this stuff on schedule. If he hurts himself in this shot, this is how much it's going to cost, or this is how much time we're going to lose, and because this is need good insurance. Yeah, so
that's another thing.
Right.
Have insurance.
Yes.
Pro tip. Yes. Have insurance.
Yeah. So yes, it happens, but when it's a crew behind the camera, they need to be professionals, knowing what they're doing, because this isn't stuff where you can improvise like an actor.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And the final one is studio executives' decisions, or private investors, funders.
when they take away that shot that you love.
Tell me about it, Jonathan. Clearly you need to speak.
No, I'm just
get this off your chest.
And there is something that says everything that you want to say in that one shot, right. And then or and they're just I want to do this. I want to show this guy's face. I want to do that, and it's like, okay, well, we could do that, but there's no need for it. And this is saying everything, and there's no better way to say something than to just have that one take that says it all, right. And says it best, because you're not cutting, shooting, going here, there, and it's just I'm just saying there's always a time where
too, because look, at the end of the day, on a big set, on a big film set, when you've got a big budget like a Hollywood set, for example, studio film. If an exec comes in and pulls the rug out from underneath you as a DP, there's nothing you can do. You just got to roll with the punches, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, hopefully the director goes to bat for you, but oftentimes maybe there's nothing they can do unless it's like, Emmanuel Lubezki, Roger Deakins, where they've actually got some pull in the industry. They can say, no, this is how it's going to happen. This is how we're going to do it. And the execs will be like, you're Roger Deakins. Yes, whatever you need. That happens. Yeah, that happens. Look, it's Roger Deakins is a very humble man, but he'll be the first one to say, no, I'm just like you. I'm just like, he's not like anyone. Okay?
Yeah, right.
and so he can say something and the execs will listen. But someone who doesn't have that kind of notoriety, at that point you can't do anything. On an indie set, it's a little different. On an indie set, it's different because oftentimes the DP is probably the first or the second person that comes onto the set and is someone that has a lot of authority and power and say in it. And oftentimes you can kind of push back on someone like that, where they come in and they say, we're gonna take this shot away, because I'm the funder and I want to do it this other way or whatever. And as a DP, you can be like, well, let's talk about it. And that's, I think, when it's important for individuals to just be professional, to be calm, cool, collected, understand that, sometimes they make certain choices that are not just purely selfish. It may be, but maybe it has to do with the marketing. Mm-hmm. Maybe it has to do with something that they're thinking about, that because you're in the story and engaged and involved so, in the script, you haven't considered that. Conversation. Yeah. Talking these things out.
Yeah. And I think you can fall in love with a story where you can lose sight of, what's important and what needs to be on there.
Or fall in love with a shot. Yeah. Or fall in love with the camera move, or fall in love with a piece of equipment. Yeah.
And that's where, again, you gotta, ego has no amigo. You gotta let it go, because it's not going to prioritize what's important. Right. It's just
you just gotta roll with the punches. You gotta learn to make lemonade, right? Out of lemons, right? Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's cut it there.
Yeah, I think it was great.
It was a good conversation. And I think we've done a really good job of just kind of highlighting that relationship that the DP has with the script, mm-hmm. and all of the factors that can affect that relationship for good and for bad, and just how to handle them. And hopefully you guys got some great insights, some great tips. We've got stories for days. I'm sure that there are stories that we forgot about, funny ones, sad ones, scary ones. Yeah. We've had crew members whom we love near and dear flip their cars because of on-set safety protocols, and we're learning. And I think
sometimes you have to make the hard decisions for others because they're so committed and passionate on something for the set or something outside, and so it's for their safety. It's like you have to love them more even than the product.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Cool. All right, time for our creators tip of the week. What you got? You got a tip of the week?
I do. I don't have any type of app, but I have a great tip. Something that I usually do that helps me to become a better cinematographer, DP. So what I do is, just find my notes here. You know what? I know it anyways off the top of my head. So when I do some film studies, these are some of the things that I do. So here's some tips that I do to become a better cinematographer. So the first thing, obviously, you should do is watch the movie silently. right?
Mm-hmm.
So shut the movie's audio and watch the scene. So if it's a scene inside a coffee shop, watch the whole scene. Stop at every cut. And when you stop at every cut, try to call out the type of shot it is. So it's a, medium close-up shot, and it's, pulling in a dolly slowly, or pulling back, or it's whatever it is. You try to identify it yourself.
Yeah.
Identify where the lights are coming from. What types of lights you think they are? The wattage, the color, where they're located. Identify the equipment being used. This is all just you just guessing.
That's awesome.
As best as you can.
It's like
exactly.
School of Hard Knocks. Like,
and
throwing in that movie and just going for it.
Yeah, it's film study as a DP, and you're going in. You figure this was a crane shot. There's a crane in this shot. Oh, this is just sticks. Just there, just sitting on tripod. You're trying to figure out what made that shot. After that, you guess the camera, the light, the lens, what lens was being used. This is a 50 millimeter lens. This at aperture, the shutter, what shutter stop it's on, what shutter speed it's on.
Speed and ISO,
exactly, and ISO. Yeah. Figure all those stuff out.
And that kind of stuff is with today's internet. You can verify. So like once you've done all that, you can verify that and see. I'm getting better.
Exactly.
I'm learning. I'm discerning better.
Exactly.
I'm understanding it better.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
So once you've done that per shot on the scene, at each shot, you write down, what did that shot tell me? So that particular shot said to me that the character is feeling lonely or distant or sad or whatever. And then you watch that whole scene and you see if what you felt and what you saw or what you thought it was telling you is actually in that scene when you turn on the audio and you hear the music or you hear the dialogue and you see the action. You will know what it's actually telling you, and you see if you were right or wrong. And that you do, you watch a movie, you do a day of that, and you just, scene by scene by scene, and you can log it all up. I kind of do that sometimes. I did that with Arrival recently. I logged it all up, and I just saw, I love the way. And you think of also techniques, how do they do this technique? How do they do that? And you do your research on it. And the more you just do that, the more you'll start to learn the language of film.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's my tip. That's kind of the things that I do when I study film to become a better DP.
That's great. That's intense.
Yeah.
So I always first
you gotta
I
love
watch
it. You gotta love.
Right. It's like first you watch it so you can just watch it for story, enjoy it, and then
what I've done is I've actually, instead of watching the whole movie first, I've actually not watched it at all, done that first, and then watched the movie. Yeah.
Oh, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
That takes discipline.
Well, it does.
That takes extreme discipline.
There'll come a time where you're watching a movie and all you're focusing is on the shots. Yeah. As a director, you'll notice, you'll be so focused sometimes. If the movie is phenomenal, you can't separate yourself from watching the shots.
Yeah, you lose it. You lose.
But sometimes naturally you'd be like, that shot was so beautiful. Yeah. You kind of separate yourself from the story and you kind of want to know how they did it. And so as a DP, you'll always be doing that. And so sometimes it's fun to just go in there and just rewrite the shot list.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Now, my creator's tip of the week. I just recently bought a MacBook Pro 16, yeah, and but there was just a ton of factors that kind of got in the way of me just going and just shopping and just buying one. Apple today is the 5th of November.
Yes,
and so on the 10th, apparently Apple is about to announce the ARM chips, the new silicon ARM chips on their MacBook Pros and on their iMacs as well. No, maybe not iMacs yet, but on their MacBook Pros and well, anyway,
I think they already have it on the iPads and iPhones.
Yeah, it's already on the but like what I was trying to, I needed to do research in order to, find out is my software going to be compatible with the ARM chips versus the Intel chips. A lot of like really nerdy, really technical stuff that I personally just don't know because it's just not my world.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Hans, and Hans referred me to an amazing YouTube channel for any of you that are ever, in consideration of buying a new machine and you just don't know, but you need to know, is it going to jive with my software? Like the hardware pieces that I have, is it going to work on this new computer? Is the speed, the power, the graphics card enough for the programs that I'm running, whether it's DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro or Premiere or Avid, whatever it may be. This guy was instrumental for helping me make the choice. He's got so much content. He does so many tests, with different programs and doing, render tests, timing tests, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
His name, the channel is Max Tech, MaxTech, Max Tech, and he tests it all.
That's
He's
awesome.
got just a whole bunch of stuff on there, and I mean, like, I guess it's honest, informative tech videos for everyone, and
That's cool because there's a lot of unboxing channels out there that don't really dive into the technical of the device, and they're just kind of telling you its quality.
Yeah.
And so it's good to know, well, I got this device, how do I use it?
Yeah.
Is it compatible? Answer certain questions that,
Yeah.
they probably isn't really their purpose.
Yeah, he's great. He's
cool.
almost got 100 million views
Cool.
on his channel. So it's informative, and he breaks it down to earth for us that speak layman's language. It was great, and it was informative, and it was easy. It was an easy buy for me because I tend to overthink things. I'm like, well, what about this, and what about this doomsday scenario? What about that, and what if and he just laid it out there, which made it like that. And it was a good experience. Cool.
Love it.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so very much for joining us for episode 31 of The Harvest. I hope that you guys enjoyed yourselves, and if you have any questions about anything at all that we've discussed, you can reach me for short questions on Twitter at xgarcia.
At Jonathan Harvest.
If you have any longer questions, you can reach us at info@mountharvest.com or simply just mountharvest@gmail.com. Thanks to our producer, Chelsea Cowie, and our contributor and information contributor, Hans Padilla, whom hopefully, if we can get the studio set up, we can get him also contributing as part of the podcast, whenever, especially we have pertinent times where he can chime in with some information and things like that. So, we'll get there eventually, and yeah.
Oh, yeah. So tap that subscribe button, like, and share, please. Thanks, guys.